In the last few weeks, dozens of Ukrainian drone attacks have targeted Wildberries, Russia's largest online retailer, often compared to Amazon. The sight of warehouses on fire, even deep inside Russia, have become a common occurrence. It's yet another example of the war being fought on a vast battlefield that reaches far beyond where the actual front lines are. Ukraine is trying to bring the war to Russia, making it felt by everyday Russians, disrupting daily life and hitting the economy. So in this video, we're going to explain the so-called warehouse war and the impact it could have not just on Wildberries, but on the entire Russian economy. Since the last edition of our magazine was published, Ukraine has found new ways to bring the war to Russia. So our new issue details 3 military campaigns that might just turn the war around. That's just one of the articles in our longest issue ever. Subscribe to get your copy by clicking the link in the description. The first question we need to answer is, what exactly is Wildberries? Wildberries is Russia's largest online retail platform. Founded in 2004, it's often described as a Russian version of Amazon. It sells a huge range of goods from clothes to cosmetics to household goods to electronics and much more. It reaches even remote corners of Russia thanks to its vast network of logistics hubs, warehouses and collection points. It has some 79 million monthly users, which is more than half the population of Russia, and hosts more than 1 million sellers, with over 85% of them small and medium-sized businesses. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 initially proved lucrative for Wildberries, as Western companies left Russia, and Wildberries was able to capitalise and significantly expand its operations. Its capital expenditure in 2023 increased 85% year-on-year to 52.6 billion rubles, and continued rising, hitting 310 billion rubles in 2025, equivalent to more than 3 billion euros. At the same time, turnover of goods on Wildberries has risen 7-fold since the invasion of Ukraine. But the war has recently turned into a nightmare for the company, as their sites have become targets for Ukrainian strikes. The first came on July the 18th, when Ukrainian drones hit 2 Wildberries warehouses, one near the town of Tambov in central Russia, and the other in Elektrostal in the Moscow region. In the week since then, more than 20 Wildberries warehouses have been struck by Ukraine. One was even hit in Yekaterinburg, more than 2,000 kilometers deep into Russia from the border with Ukraine. The founder and CEO of Wildberries, Tatiana Kim, who is also Russia's richest woman, has described the Ukrainian strikes on her company as acts of terrorism. Now, there doesn't seem to be a definitive number, but more than a dozen Wildberries employees have reportedly been killed in the Ukrainian attacks, and many more injured. It goes without saying that the Geneva Conventions prohibit attacks on civilians and civilian objects. But Ukraine argues that Wildberries hubs are involved in providing the Russian army with drone components, navigation equipment and other gear. Wildberries and the Kremlin deny that the platform supplies the Russian army. While weapons are not sold on Wildberries, so-called dual-use items, which have military as well as civilian uses, are, such as tactical vests, armour plates and optical fibre for drones. And Ukrainian officials say these are bought by soldiers, their families and volunteer units to help supply the front line. But these strikes are clearly not just about disrupting this specific trade. It's about disrupting Wildberries' entire business platform, and therefore making the impact of the war felt by ordinary Russians. Ukrainian drone commander Robert Brovdy said as much after the first strikes in July, stating that they aim to shatter the illusion of a peaceful life in a second. Similarly, an advisor to President Zelenskyy said the strikes are designed to impact the large number of Russians who claim to be apolitical and turn a blind eye to everything. The strikes on Wildberries really are having an impact. According to Reuters' analysis of satellite imagery, by August the 7th, at least 1.18 million square metres of warehouse space had been damaged or destroyed, which represents more than a fifth of the company's capacity. The impact is being felt by consumers, who face delays and disruptions to their orders. Independent Russian news site The Bell estimates that Wildberries sales are down 25% as a result of the strikes. Small and medium-sized businesses using Wildberries to store, sell and ship their products are feeling it particularly hard, as one strike has the potential to destroy stock belonging to thousands of businesses. According to an estimate by Moscow-based analytics firm Data Insight, sellers may have lost between 215 billion to 280 billion rubles, roughly $2.7 to $3.5 billion. They can't even be sure that they'll be compensated, As less than 2 weeks before the first attack, Wildberries added drone attacks to the list of force majeure events, for which the company is not liable. CEO Tatiana Kim has promised not to abandon sellers on the site, and the Kremlin is also apparently considering its options to help. Additionally, Russia's central bank has called on lenders to offer loan relief and restructuring programs to affected businesses. That the Russian government is concerned should not come as a surprise at all. After all, Wildberries and its smaller rivals, including Ozon, which has had one facility struck by Ukraine, account for about 8.5% of Russia's GDP and support around 4 million direct and indirect jobs. Wildberries is intertwined with the Russian banking sector as well, both as a major corporate borrower with more than $10 billion of debt and through its financial arm WB Bank, which is partially owned by the state-owned VTB Bank. So overall, Ukraine's goals in striking Wildberries can be summed up in 3 main parts. 1. Disrupt the supply of dual-use items to the military. 2. Create social pressure by disrupting daily life for Russian citizens in the hope of forcing the Kremlin to end the war. And 3. Inflict damage to the Russian economy, thereby squeezing the country's budget and ultimately impacting its ability to finance the war. Ultimately, the Wildberries campaign fits into a wider strategy that Ukraine calls long-range sanctions, that also includes attacking Russian oil infrastructure deep inside the country, which has in turn contributed to a deep fuel crisis. Of course, there is a risk that this strategy somewhat backfires. The sight of Wildberries warehouses in flames and the corresponding civilian death toll may harden the resolve of Russian citizens against Ukraine and prompt the Kremlin to escalate its war, although it has rarely needed an excuse to do so. However, Ukraine is in an unenviable position. Another winter of Russian strikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure approaches, and Russia has already intensified its deadly ballistic missile attacks in recent months, seeking to exploit the fact that Ukraine is running low on interceptors. President Zelenskyy has made clear that Ukraine is sticking to its strategy. He said on Monday, after a Ukrainian strike on a Russian petrochemical plant 1,500 kilometers away from the front line, that there would be more Ukrainian deep strikes, which should demonstrate to Russia and the Russians that peace is necessary. Now, this story about Ukraine's shortage of missile interceptors is constantly updating as more and more outlets are reporting on it, so it might feel like it's hard to keep up with the ever-changing media landscape. Right now, there are 49 sources currently reporting on it, with most of the coverage coming from the centre. This type of analysis is why ground news has been our favourite way to stay up to date with the news since 2023. It's no secret by this point just how much we're fans of ground news. They've been long-time supporters of this channel and independent news media at large, and truly help us understand the political climate better. For example, without ground news, we wouldn't be able to easily compare the headlines for this story on Ukraine's interceptor shortage, and see that the left highlights the US's role in the shortage and the right leans away from doing so. Ground news not only gives you an easy way to digest the news, but it also offers a comprehensive breakdown into the ownership, bias distribution, and factuality of each article, allowing you to dive even deeper. If you're worried about how much you can trust what's being said about a specific story, with a click of a button you can filter and sort every story by their factuality level, helping you to easily grasp the reliability of each outlet. And with their blind spot feed, you're able to see everything you might not normally stumble across, both local and international, keeping you fully informed even outside of your media bubble. Ground news is completely algorithm free, so you're never forced into a narrative or told how or what to think. That's why we're partnering with them to offer you 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. All you have to do is subscribe through the link in the description, go to ground.news/TLDR or scan the QR code on screen, and you'll be supporting an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.